You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies, and today my guest is Téana David, who is the artistic director for the ILLUMINATE Film Festival, which will be here in Santa Barbara, running from May 1st through the 4th. And then if you cannot make it to Santa Barbara for this film festival, you can watch it virtually from May 5th through May 11th. Welcome back to the show, Téana.
Oh, thank you so much, Jan. It is lovely to be on this show. I love your questions. I really appreciate your intention of going behind the scenes and really understanding the filmmakers and their craft. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. And I love this film festival. This film festival started for 9 years in Sedona, Arizona, where I used to live. I lived in Sedona for a couple of years. And then you brought it to Santa Barbara last year. And I feel blessed that you brought it to Santa Barbara. It was such an amazing film festival. It literally, at the end of the film festival, I felt my consciousness was raised to an incredibly high degree, as well as everyone else, because you were with like-minded people who it was just the films themselves were consciousness raising and sparked lots of conversations. So it was an amazing film festival. As I said, at the end of the film festival, I felt I was on a big high, and I didn't have any drugs to do that. So.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. That is one of our intentions, to elevate consciousness through film and media. We also believe that true and lasting change begins within. So you'll notice a lot of our films are about the inner journey, but it doesn't stop there. It's taking care of our inner landscapes so that we can be of service in our world, so that we can create a more caring civilization. And that starts right here. It starts in Santa Barbara. It starts with the person sitting next to you at the film festival or standing with you in line. So I'm happy that you had the experience that you did, and sounds like you probably made some new friends. And yeah.
Exactly. I did make many new friends. I love your mission statement. I guess it's you're looking through the lens of love. I absolutely.
Yes, this is our theme.
Your theme this year.
2025.
It's beautiful. And the artwork, the poster by Trisha Everson, it was...
Trisha Evenson, yes. She is such a talent. And I feel that her art comes from somewhere else. She's channeling, like many great artists do, right? It's sort of, they become a bridge from the unseen world to the seen world so that we can all experience it. And I so have that experience with Trisha and her art. And looking through the lens of love, Jan, thank you for highlighting that. I mean, there's so many ways that can be interpreted. And I think the reason we felt that was apt for this year is we all know the world is in some turmoil right now. It really is. I think it behooves us to continue to open our hearts and practice empathy. Films allow us to practice empathy, don't they? I mean, for an hour and a half or two, we get to step into other people's worlds, other people's experiences. It's kind of magical. There are films I see that take place maybe in Africa or in Syria, and I would have zero idea what the lived experience of so many people are without the magic of film, the portal that it is to allow me to, for however brief a time, to step into that world and really get a sense of my other human siblings on this planet. So looking through the lens of love, can we look at each other wherever we live, whatever our circumstances, through a lens of compassion and caring, empathy? And I think, can we also be aware of polishing our own lens? Sometimes when we're having a bad day and then everything's going wrong, I feel it's because we're not taking care of our own lens. We're sort of allowing something to get cloudy inside of us, and that filter, then we start seeing the world through a filter that is less than beautiful. And so there is this self-responsibility and this idea that true and lasting change begins, which begins within. True and lasting change begins within. We say that a lot at Illuminate, and you see that reflected in our film choices. Now, the important thing is that it doesn't end there. True and lasting change begins within, but then it bridges out of us into the world around us, right? Hopefully, when we polish our own lens and open our hearts, hopefully it inspires us to be of service, to be more involved in our communities and play our unique role in making the world, dare I say it, a better place.
Yes. The message of love is becoming out more and more this year. I'm hearing it from all different places and from all different speakers and just people out generally in the world. And so that's why your theme this year is so perfect, so perfect. And I agree with you that cinema and films have a way of changing us, and that's why I love what I do. I feel like I'm going to a higher university, just by watching many films that I might not have ever been exposed to. I learned so much, and that's why going to film festivals where you get to see films that may or may not be shown other places. It's always, hopefully they are going to be distributed and shown in other places. But many times by going to a film festival, you'll see a film that you absolutely loved and it may never get distributed, unfortunately. So that's why it's important to go see these films at film festivals and to experience them. But I couldn't agree with you more that especially, I will say that I changed the type of films that types of films that I wanted on my show after going to the Illuminate Film Festival. So it did have an effect. I don't think I've ever shared that with you.
You did not share that with me, Jan. That's kind of huge.
Yeah, it did. It was a huge shift just internally for me, as I said. But then when I really thought about it, I thought I am going to be more particular about the kinds of films that I have on my show that I talk about. And I never liked horror anyhow, so that's not what I cover. But violent films. I decided,
Right.
not going to do violent films any longer.
Well, I love that you bring that up because at this year's festival, we're starting off with what we're calling the Industry Hive. And this is a whole day geared towards industry professionals, emerging, established, but anybody who's interested in what we're calling the conscious film movement, right? Films that uplift, that light the way to a brighter world for all of us. So this is May 1st at the 28 Vic, which is our festival hub. And one of our speakers will speak to just what you're saying, Jan. She'll speak to the physiology of what we take in through our eyes, through all of our senses. There is measurable impact when we're watching violence. And we've heard these studies about video games, but it happens to children starting very young in front of cartoons. I mean, just because something is animated doesn't mean it's not violent. And by the time a child is 5, they might have witnessed thousands and thousands of murders, whether it's in a cartoon or somewhere else. I think we need to be more mindful about what we're putting out in the world, and especially what our children are looking at, because it affects the nervous system. There is some evidence that it can actually kind of dumb down the senses. At first something may be disturbing, but when you see it over and over again, it becomes less disturbing. And I think the jury is still out about whether that itself can lead to somebody becoming violent, like becoming desensitized to either committing violence themselves or being okay with it around them. So it's a big field of study, and I think Illuminate touches on that. It's a certain frequency that we want to maintain. We're interested in uplifting content because if we want violent or sort of hurtful or low frequency content, we can turn on the news. Like, this is happening all around us every day. There's easy availability to that content. And I'm not at all advocating that we tune out what is actually happening in the world. We must remain informed. I feel this is so important, but I've actually taken to reading the news more. It is less less stimulating for my nervous system. So that's a little choice that I've made, a pivot I've made recently as I read the news. And it's sometimes too much to take it in, which speaks to the power of media.
Right, right. I'm with you. I was kind of a news junkie there for a while, and then I just said, no, I can't. I can't watch it. And I'm totally with you. I'm reading it more. I agree. We need to be aware. We need to know what's going on. But even then, I can just say, okay, I'm not going to read this any further. I've got enough. I've got the headlines. I don't need to go into it any deeper than already. I agree with you because we do have to be careful what we take in. Totally, no
We
matter what.
do. I mean, it's just like we watch what we eat, hopefully, maybe. We want those ingredients to be pure. We want them to be well sourced. We really need to start thinking about the media diet, and especially if we have children.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, on that note, let's talk about your opening night film that you have, Wisdom of Happiness, with.
Oh, yes. Happy to. Wisdom of Happiness is executive produced by Richard Gere. It's a relatively new film on the festival circuit. It features the Dalai Lama. And it's a very intimate heart to heart with the Dalai Lama. And I so appreciate him because while he is a spiritual leader, even if one is not at all spiritual, I think we can respect his groundedness and his attention to current events. Actually, I so appreciate sort of the activist side of the Dalai Lama. He really is about affecting practical change. He's not just sitting in a cave meditating. I mean, he's so involved and engaged in the world and in achieving justice, I think truly by reminding us that we are all one human family, right? And no matter what kind of situation you're born into, we all deserve just equal rights on this planet as a citizen of the earth. So I think that it'll be a real crowd pleaser, whether one is, a Buddhist or not. He really has that crossover appeal. And then we'll have a big party to celebrate our opening night. And maybe I can share just another few films that are highlights for me.
Please do. Please do.
Okay.
By the way, I saw the Dalai Lama years and years ago. He came to Salt Lake City.
You did. You saw him in person.
I saw him in person, yeah, and it was just, again, one of those pinch me moments. And
Oh, wow. He's 90. Can you believe it? He's 90. So it is a question of how many more films he'll be in. And in a way, this feels like sort of an opus. You'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited for everyone to see it. So the Duplass brothers, Mark and Jay Duplass, so they are executive producers of a film called Between the Mountain and the Sky. And this is a film that chronicles the life of Maggie Doyne. Maggie is a young humanitarian from the United States who went to Nepal just on a gap year. I mean, literally, I think she was 18 or 19. Like, I'll take a gap year from, wherever she was living in the United States. And she ends up founding an orphanage with like 50 children, and I'm not going to give it away, but tragedy strikes and she needs to overcome it. So it's a beautiful documentary that has a real narrative arc. And I see this trend in documentaries more and more, right? It's less pedantic and less informational, though there's still a place for those kind of docs, of course. But I certainly love the documentaries that make you wonder, is this a narrative or is this a doc? Because the story arc is so compelling, and even the character arcs within that, you see them come up against obstacles, have to really rally their inner strength to overcome them. And this is what we call transformational film. I feel like when you witness a character have to dig deep inside themselves to overcome something, the mirror neurons, which is proven that when we watch something, we are activated as if we are actually doing that. So I believe there's a way in which watching characters overcome difficult circumstances sort of allows us to step into that possibility ourselves. And this is what I feel about Between the Mountain of the Sky and the Sky. So I'm excited about that one.
it sounds very inspirational, which is what we all need to have even more today. So I can't wait to see that one myself. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. And then let's see, what else could I share about? Ooh, okay. So, world premiere of a film called Wolf's Message. And Wolf's Message is based on a book by an evidence-based medium named Suzanne Giesemann. Suzanne is a former high-ranking Navy officer who started receiving messages from, we could say, beyond the veil. And now I'll just say that I am a little bit skeptical about all of this stuff, even though I'm spiritual, but I just like to have my feet on the ground and just be wary. This film is so rich and heart-centered. Suzanne basically helps connect a family who lost their son to a lightning strike with him from the other side. And there are so many reveals that they will just leave your jaw just hanging open, Jan. It's really affirming that consciousness and energy, they do not cease to exist when a person ceases to be what we call alive, right? Consciousness is it's a constant in the universe. It may shift form. This film, and I don't want to give it away, but it provides just so much affirmation of what I think many of us know to be true, that there are these different dimensions. And if we sort of attune ourselves, there are ways that we can communicate interdimensionally, we could say. And Wolf's Message is both in the in-person, and like I said, we have the world premiere, and Suzanne Giesemann will be here with us. She'll actually be doing a real integration, which means, so we say REEL, a real integration. So after the film and after a little panel, we'll have her lead us in some experiential exercises to maybe help us attune to the unseen a little more. And it's in person, but it's also in the virtual festival. So if you're listening to this and you cannot come to Santa Barbara, you can catch Wolf's Message in the virtual festival.
I'm very excited about that. I've heard a lot about her. I have.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I have some friends who know her very well, and they said even before I knew she was going to be in the film festival, they said, "Oh, I must reach out to her and have her on the show." And I guess she has a cruise or something that she does, I think, so anyhow, they go do that. So yeah, I've heard her name has been coming up more and more and more. So I was very excited to hear that you.
Oh, good. And then I'll just highlight a couple more. If one is more in the sort of like regenerative agriculture, nature, wilderness, then you might be really excited about Feeding Tomorrow. This is directed by Oliver and Simon English. And it's about creating a just and regenerative, resilient food system. Talks a lot about how in hospitals, why are we feeding people who are sick, green Jello? I mean, what is the logic behind that? Can we not have gardens at hospitals? And touches about the school system and just helping our children, be healthier. And in turn, you're making the land healthier. I mean, it's just a win-win, right? When we grow things without harsh chemicals, the land is healthier, and then we're also not taking them in when we're eating them. So that's Feeding Tomorrow. And we have Turtle Walker this is the true story of a man in the 1970s, an Indian man who was tracking leatherback turtles. He was finding their nesting grounds and really taking a measure of how many turtles were left in the wild. And this is like really important research now. And he did it just by himself, living for months and months on remote islands. And this is one of these kind of hybrid films where it's a documentary and we're seeing him interviewed, but the reenactments, of course, back to the 70s, they're just so well done. And I always just take my hat off to filmmakers who can really authentically take us back to the 1970s with an actor playing the now, 80-something-year-old protagonist, and make it look and feel authentic and seamlessly interweave these reenactments with, real-time interviews I think it's just such a feat when one is successful with that. And I feel that with Turtle Walker.
That sounds fascinating. They all sound fascinating, and compelling and intriguing. Every single one of them. Let's talk a little bit about the Lynn Twist is coming, who I met many years ago. We were actually involved in a world nonprofit called Humanity Unites Brilliance, and we went. Well, she didn't go to Africa with us, but we supported causes in Kenya years ago. And anyhow, so I haven't seen Lynn in a long time, so I'm very excited that she was going to be your opening keynote speaker. So let's talk a little bit about Lynn Twist.
Sure. Yes, in a way, there couldn't be a more perfect opening keynote for Illuminate than Lynn Twist. Of course, last year we had Deepak Chopra. He was wonderful. And Lynn Twist, she was working a lot on ending world hunger. And maybe that's kind of when you knew her, Jan. She was working in Ghana at one time around ending world hunger. And she started having these visions, not while she was sleeping, but while she was in board meetings. These faces were coming at her, and they were men, and they had a certain kind of face paint on them. And she had no idea what to make of this. She felt like maybe she was losing her mind because these visions were persistent. They wouldn't go away, so much so that she had to leave Ghana and get on a plane and just get home. She called her friend John Perkins, who was working in the Amazon. She thought maybe John could help her figure out. So she described what these faces looked like. And John said, this is, I think it's the Achwar. It's a certain tribe that is clearly contacting you, Lynn. They need your help. And so Lynn, knowing nothing about the Amazon or indigenous rights, any of that, she went down and met with them. Well, that was 30 plus years ago. She founded the Pachamama Alliance and has helped these indigenous tribes, primarily in Ecuador, really, let's say, like resist corporate interests in the form of mining and logging, all of that. And she now, and then she went on to write The Soul of Money, which is kind of her most famous book, and, was on Oprah about it and all that. And it really is understanding money as currency. Think about that word. There's current. Money is it's like a water current. Can we let it flow? Can we see it as something that should be flowing and not be stopped or dammed up? So you could say she has sort of a spiritual understanding of the role of money in our society and how best to interface with money and sort of how to hold it and frame it in your life so that it does flow, because I think we all want that, right? We want it flowing. And then her most recent book is called Living a Committed Life. And this is really what she will be speaking about, which is, can we make our lives about something larger than ourselves, and how satisfying that ultimately ends up being, right? So really, I'm so glad you know Lynn Twist. I feel like not enough people know Lynn, though many people do, but she's a true just leader and leads with light and a lot of intelligence. So yes, she will be opening on May 1st.
We only have a brief minute. Can you let's talk about the closing night film.
Oh, I'm glad you asked about that. So the closing night film is called The Journey, and it's actually the pilot episode of a series. So it's a series in development. It features the brothers Corrin. This is a musical duo made up of Isaac and Torald Corrin. They are Australian former rock stars. They were on their way to full pop idol status, but something about that felt empty to them, felt superficial. And I think they were struggling with anxiety. And so they completely pivoted their lives over 10 years ago now, and they have committed to helping people find their voice and heal trauma through creative expression, particularly with rhythm and, songwriting and poetry and all of that. So this first episode of the series that we are showing as our closing night film sees them working with two individuals who are struggling with hardships in their lives, and they're creating music with them. And you'll see how these participants transform. And then we will have Isaac and Torald live with us, and they will lead us in creating a collective song, believe it or not, which they do so beautifully. And then it'll go into a concert, and that will close out the festival in person on May 4th. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
We're so excited that you're excited, Jan. You have such a beautiful spirit, and we just love having you around.
Thank you. I feel the same about you and Kit, too. I feel exactly the same. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Okay, everyone, there is a link on our social media postings that you can go purchase your tickets to the Illuminate Film Festival. Again, it's May 1st through the 4th here in Santa Barbara. Please come to Santa Barbara and experience this in person. But if you cannot, May 5th through the 11th is the virtual festival, and you'll experience it in your own special way virtually. So thank you so much for being back on the show and for being a presence in my life, too. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jan. And I just want to take a quick moment to credit the rest of my team. We have Kia Kiso, who is the new interim executive director. We're having a wonderful time working together. Kit Thomas, co-producer, Hillary Carr, senior producer, Danette Walpert-Holman, of course, is the founder. Andrew Stoneham is the senior programmer. I've been working really closely with him, and there are so many others, but I just wanted to name these wonderful people who are working so hard alongside me to bring this to fruition.
Oh, yes. It's great. You can't do it alone. You know, it takes a village.
It sure does. It really, truly does. Thank you so much.
See you soon. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, blessed day.